balance of career progression and something about our personal values, personal life going in parallel. It is a tricky space to navigate, and this lunchtime panel is going to share with you their journey, their lessons learned, and I hope that that empowers you. I was reading, I told you I read a lot, right? So I'm reading the Harvard Business Studies. It's a collection of surveys on women in leadership. Again, you could almost cross off women and put anybody in a diverse trying to get ahead. There's a study, and you can Google it. It says it's basically about off-ramps and on-ramps in your career, and those are very valuable as you refocus your career. Some people start in one tangent, decide they want to go maybe from teaching to administration. Maybe they were an engineer and now want to be a supervisor. Those are on-ramps, off-ramps, and those are powerful, and you need to do those. But what's not powerful is if you take an off-ramp because you can't figure out how to stay on the on-ramp, okay? This study said the top 5 reasons women are leaving the fast lane, which means the path they want to be on. 45% in 2018 left because of family conflicts, okay? I'm sure that the men also have, and they have a category of 21% left. So it is a time we're in where we're trying to have good family life and career progression. Again, this lunchtime panel is going to take us on their journey. Each one of these has a friend of mine. I've asked them to come because I know that they have found a way through that journey, and I know that it'll be powerful for you. I'm going to start with them introducing beyond what they printed in the program, a little about who they are. We'll go through some shared dialogue questions up here. And then most importantly, the Q&A from the floor. We'll do like this morning with the mics. This is your time to find out what you need from them. All right? Are we good, everybody? All right. So we're going to make this complicated. We're going down the line with their introduction. Shilpa, would you go first, please?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? I can't tell if it's on. No?
Do we
Is
tilt
there
it?
something I need to do?
Should just be able to pull it closer to you.
Just get closer? Okay. How about now? Okay. My name is Shilpa Amato. About, I think, 17 years ago or so, I moved from Illinois and I took a job with Indian Head, where I was a chemical engineer working in the lab and the plant, hands-on with chemistry, making explosives, and had a lot of fun doing that. And I was at Indian Head for nearly a decade, where I had roles as an engineer, as a project manager, as a branch manager, until I took my current position, where I'm with a small business named Nailus Engineering. It was actually started by my mentor and current CEO, Jerry Thalen, who also used to work at Indian Head. When I started with the company, there were 4 people, and now we're close to 50. And it was a pretty big change, leaving the government, pretty big risk. But I'm happy I did it, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. My husband, who I met while working at Indian Head, still works there, and he's very happy there. So we live in Fairfax, Virginia, which we call Fun Facts. There's lots to do there. We're in a very nice community, diverse school district. In my spare time, I like to be as involved as I can with school, with the kids' activities. One, I have mom guilt, where I feel like I'm not doing enough, so I always feel like I need to step in where I can. But 2, it gives me the opportunity to witness some of the relationship dynamics with my daughters. I have 2 daughters, in case I didn't say that, that are in elementary school. I get to form connections with the other parents. And 3, I like to show my children what it looks like to contribute to the community that you live in. We as a family like to do a lot of travel. We like to go to sporting events, go on hikes. Personally, for me, when I need me time, I like to exercise and make sure to do that several times a week because it's good for my sanity. And I like going out to eat and hanging out with my friends and just everything that's very normal for most people. Nothing extravagant. And when my husband and I can, we have date nights, but that usually just means we're going to Home Depot and then Bed Bath & Beyond and getting a babysitter. But it's good because we usually can't do stuff like that with kids. So that's the exciting life I'm living right now.
Thank you.
Good morning, Karen Burrows, and it's great to be
Can't hear
here.
it?
You can't hear me, okay. So I guess there's a button I need.
Where's mine?
Should be able to do something.
How about now? Okay,
Does
the
that work?
microphone training.
Try this one.
Looks like a press conference, now you have 3.
It did take me, okay, this is great, all right. Good morning, Karen Burrows, and some of you may know me. I'm a alum of NSWC Indian Head, where I started out my career in the 1980s. I spent more than 25 years at Indian Head in various positions, and I must say that had it not been for Indian Head, they prepared me so well for where I am today. Had many opportunities, both professionally and for leadership there at the Warfare Center. And again, just some great years, some great friendships that I have even now today as a result of my time there. And it's great to look out in the audience and see some of those friendships and some of those individuals that I've known through the years. I'm married, I have 2 sons, and I was listening to Shilpa, and I said, boy, I must have a pretty boring life. But no, I decided that probably when I started to see family members pass away, that I really started to take a hard look at my life and really started to take account for, gee, you know, when I was talking to my husband, I said, gee, you know, we have probably less time in front of us than we do behind us, and you know, we really should get on with doing some of the things we want to do in life. And so at that point in time, I decided to just take those little steps toward just what they call living your best life. And those things aren't extravagant trips, but just doing and pursuing some things that I like to do. And so one of the things that I try to make sure that I do is treat myself to massages. You know, that's a little self-indulgent, but you know, I feel like, hey, you know, I work hard. I need to maybe de-stress and have someone try to de-stress me. And so I try to make sure I do that. And then the other thing I do is to make sure that I'm living and being present for my kids and my sons. And those decisions are daily. Just this past Friday, as I'm driving into work, I really wasn't planning on doing this, but my son had a concert up in the College Park area. I wasn't going. But when I was driving in, I said, darn it, I think I'm just going to leave work early and go to his concert and hear him play. And so as I saw him, as most teenagers do, he's like, what are you doing here? You know, he kind of, I'm like, I'm here to see you. You know, I thought I would get a better reception than that. But, you know, but again, you know, that was something I really wanted to do. I wanted to hear him play, and they were fantastic because, again, that was something that, you know, I was never going to get that time back to hear him and his band play. And so, again, it's just really taking time out to do some things that you will never get that opportunity to do again. And I've decided that at the point I'm at now, that I'm just going to give myself license to do things and not be stressed about it and not think about what's not going to get done at the office, because I'm giving myself license to do things that takes me away from the office. I wish I had come to that realization sooner, but I'm here now, and I'm taking advantage of it. So for those of you all who are out there who are constantly making those having those tug of wars inside with yourself, you know, I got this going on at the office, or, should I be at home with the kids or the family? Give yourself license. You know, I can't think of one thing I missed at the office because I took off to be with the family. So that's my intro.
Thank you.
More to come.
Dr. Hill?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kim Hill. I'm a lifelong educator. I've worked for Charles County Public Schools for 32 years. And if you would have asked me in my very first job after college at McDonough High School teaching social studies, would you someday be running a $350 million organization and be responsible for 3,500 employees, I would have not just said no, I would have said, hell no. Because I had no interest in that. I really just loved education, loved being a teacher. Outside of my job, I guess we'll talk about that as we go along through the panel, but outside of my job, I think it's important, and I have to do this to myself most days, is to stay positive and remain whatever faces you. All of us have challenges and stuff that gets in the way of our personal lives or our professional lives, and it's our decision how we approach those things that come in front of us. And so, have you heard the phrase self-talk? I use my air quotes, self-talk. So most days of the week, I do a lot of self-talking and a lot of, you can do this, you can handle this, and this is going to be okay because you're going to make it okay. And I find in my personal life as well as my professional life that that's an important thing to remember. Personally, we, my husband Charles and I have 2 children, a daughter and a son. Both are grown and both now off our payroll. So that's a good thing. It takes a long time. One is 27 and the other is 26, but it does happen. Those of you who are still in the midst, Shilpa, of all of that, I'm very proud of my kids. Both are products of Charles County Public Schools. One is in public service. She's a law enforcement officer in North Carolina, and the other is in sales. He lives in Arlington, Virginia. So Charles County Public Schools and our community in general has been very good to our family. And I appreciate the ability to live in a place where I love to live as well as love to work, whether it's the base at Indian Head, the College of Southern Maryland, Charles County Public Schools, Charles Regional Medical Center. We have some great organizations in our own community that promote the growth of all employees, not just women, not just men, all employees. So this is a place where we can nurture and be nurtured by others, and I'm proud to be a part of this. Amy, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Dave?
Good morning. I'm Dave Olson. I'm currently the director of the Customer Advocate Office at NSWC Indian Head. Just a little bit on my background. So married, have 5 kids. My wife is a NICU nurse, so she works in the neonatal intensive care unit. And for her, she works 3 nights a week, so 3 12-hour shifts. And one of the things for us as we were getting into our careers, we kind of made that conscious decision that we wanted to have one of us home with our kids at all times. So for her and my career, we were able to kind of match that up. And, you know, with her nursing at night, she can get home, and we don't see each other all that often, but at least we're there for the kids. It's also created some challenges for us in that we've had to assume some non-traditional roles. I don't know much about laundry, and for the longest time, all the family's clothes were pink. We've gone through that. You know, cooking. It doesn't sound like it's much, but getting dinner for the kids, you know, we eat Cheerios 3 nights a week for dinner. But we're getting better. We're getting better with that. So those kind of things, you know, it was kind of a trade-off. You need to kind of make some decisions and figure out what's important for you. Some of the other stuff, you know, I do enjoy. We live very close to the bay. I enjoy getting out on the water. So I did buy, you know, I bought a boat 10 years ago, and it was great the first 2 years. As the kids have gotten older, they're very active. They all compete in sports and multiple sports. So, you know, at this point, I'm lucky if I get out once or twice a year. Now, my wife tells me it's a very expensive trip, you know, when you figure in the slip fees and the maintenance, and I think she told me, you know, for each trip I go out on my boat, we could have gone on a week-long cruise together. Again, trade-offs there. So overall, you know, we're happy with the situation. It can be challenging at times, but I think the kids appreciate having one of us there pretty much at all times, so.
Thank you, Dave. Heather?
Hi, my name is Heather Ziola, and I am the Director of Campus Operations here at the La Plata campus. Is my crew in the back? Thank you. So I have been here at the college for about 10 years. I've held various positions. I've been fortunate enough to work with our students. I have taught sign language classes. I've worked with various nonprofits, volunteerism, service learning. You can't hear me in the back? No? Let's see. We might have to do the mic swap. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Adapt over there. It's a great panel.
Thank you. So I was saying that I've held various positions here at CSM, teaching. I've taught sign language. I've taught business classes. I've worked with our students. I've done travel study. I've had a lot of different experiences. I've worked with our faculty. And now, like I said, my position is Director of Campus Operations, which is a brand new position. So one of my counterparts at the other campuses in the back there supporting me, and we're kind of developing the position as we go along. So personally, I have been married for 11 years. My husband travels, so I definitely pull the single mom a lot when he's on travel, so I've learned to ask for help. That definitely is what gets me by, help from friends. I'm very fortunate to have my family close by, so those calls to mom and dad really help me often. I have 3 children, all boys, twins that are 6. They're just now in kindergarten in Charles County, so we are absolutely loving that experience. And then I have a 2-year-old that is in daycare here, so it's very nice to have him close by, and I get to see him as they take him on little walks around the campus. So we're really enjoying getting them into different programs. They play t-ball. We're signing them up for hockey soon, so we're getting them involved into different things. So definitely trying to find that work-life balance or harmony is definitely a challenge at this time in my life. Something that I do like to do for me, I am a part-time wedding coordinator on the weekends. So I enjoy event planning. You know, some people find that stressful. I really enjoy it. So on the weekends, I get to work with brides and help plan their days. So that is something I enjoy. And yes, it is definitely for me, but it is another one of those opportunities that kind of take me away. But again, it is something that I enjoy. So that's one of those things that I do for myself. So it's a little bit about me.
So thank you, everybody. We're going to start, and I'm going to just ask you guys to jump in first, whoever wants to jump in. So tell us about a time when you were challenged, if you've been challenged, to maintain your career progression at some pace and keep balance in your family life, your personal life, wherever you were at that time. What did you learn that can help these people when they face that similar challenge? Anybody? Anybody have a challenge?
I'll start, if that's okay. I'm thinking back to, I was a high school principal, the biggest high school in the district, North Point High School. We had 2,200 students at the time. You got nothing, you only 1,700 now. No, 2,200 students. I was principal. My daughter had just graduated from North Point High School and was headed off to college. And I decided that was the time I would start my doctorate program. I'm not sure why. But I thought, if you're ever going to do this, there's a time you need to do this, and so jump in. And so I applied and was accepted at George Washington University. And so after working the hours that a high school principal works, and that's day and night, many days during the week, Friday after work, I would drive to Alexandria and take courses until 10 o'clock at night. And then the next morning, Saturday, we would have to be back at 8:30 in Alexandria to go all day every other weekend. And I think what I learned from that is that you can do as much as you believe you can do. And I have a coworker who is still very close to me at this point, and still a very close coworker, who every Friday, as I was gathering all my stuff to go to downtown, and she was gathering her stuff to go home, she would say, "It sucks to be you." And I said, "Shut up, Debbie." But the point of this is that if you decide that you want to do something, you can do it. And if you decide that you don't want to do something, then you won't do it. It's all about, again, what you believe. And there were times in that 3.5-year period of that doctoral program that I really didn't think I could do it. And my husband, who has been a tremendous support throughout my entire career, said, "You got this. I'm leaving," which is what I needed him to do on Saturdays and Sundays when I just needed to read or write or do whatever it is I had to do. "You focus on you and focus on your goal, and you're going to do this." And so that's the difficult thing, is the self-talk and the convincing yourself that you can, because you can. You just need to start stepping through it.
Anyone else?
I'm going to go in a little different direction on this. So I graduated in the early 90s from Maryland with economics degree, later went back for an engineering degree. So when I came out, I went to work for a brokerage firm. And I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street? Yes. All right, so it sounds like most of you are familiar. Those who aren't, it's about a guy that starts a stock brokerage house, is very successful, gets very rich, but has some very severe lapses in moral judgment and ethical issues. At the end of it, he ends up in jail along with a number of associates. So anyway, when I got out, I went to work for Stratton Oakmont, and it was a very interesting time. It wasn't quite as over the top as the movie, from what I remember, but it wasn't too far off either. And we had a lot of fun. But it led to a situation where on a daily basis, questioning, my moral judgment, my ethics, it was very challenging. And it ended up where it would potentially, well, not potentially, it was impacting my personal life. And again, I had to kind of make some decisions on what direction I wanted to go. And at the end of the day, it was my girlfriend, soon-to-be wife at the time, decided that I needed to figure out what was important. There were a lot of people working there where money was the most important thing, and it drove all of their decisions. And most of it, well, not most of it, a lot of it being bad decisions. For me, I decided I wanted to go in a new direction, and decided it was time to go back to school and kind of refocus and determine what was really important for my life. So, but it was a lot of fun for me.
I have an experience to share as well. And it kind of ties into what you're saying, is making sure that you're following what's true to you and what you want to do. I reached a point when I was working here with having all 3 of my children in daycare. and I literally was volunteering my time here. All of my paycheck plus some went to the daycare. So I had to have that tough conversation with my husband and figure out, is this really working for us? Is this the right thing to do? And so, that's a really tough decision and a tough conversation to have, because, do you continue to do what you love to do, which being here, I love what I do, or do you go ahead and take them all out and stay at home and work with your children that way? So we definitely had to have that conversation, and for me, I had to be okay with the fact that I wanted to be here. I give a lot of moms credit that stay home and work, or stay home with their kids. I appreciate and respect that path. That wasn't the path for me, and I had to be okay with that. But I also had to be okay with the fact that I couldn't have my automatic payment go to the daycare because I owed them money. But that was a journey that I had to take and a challenge that I had to face, and it was a great conversation that my husband supported me in, that I really wanted to be here, and that's what I needed to do. So it definitely was a challenge along the way.
I think I have a similar story like Heather, where while at the Warfare Center, I had the opportunity to take a detail assignment to the Pentagon. And during that time, I had a very young child. I think he was probably less than 6 months old. And he was at the daycare center at the child care center there on the base. And I had another child who had also been at the child care center. I thought they had given great care to children. And here I was faced with this assignment in Arlington, and faced with the position of, gee, I've got to pull my child out of daycare on the base, which was very convenient, super cheap, relatively speaking. Familiar, knew the care providers, and having to find a new care provider and go across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge every day into Virginia. And frankly, I was afraid. I was scared to death to have to leave what was familiar to me for so many years, go into what was just very unknown. I had no idea what I had to do to even find a daycare provider, because my older son had stayed at the daycare until it was time for him to go to school. I was scared to death, and I almost didn't take the assignment. I was just stymied with fear. And I just had to, like you said, talk to yourself a little bit, to just step out and just do it. And I'm so glad I did. That was I look back over that now, that was a career-changing experience for me to be able to take that assignment. I can't imagine not doing that where I would be if I hadn't done that. But again, found a daycare provider literally blocks away from my home who was fantastic, who just provided excellent care, was a teacher at heart, prepared him well for kindergarten, and then the assignment that I had was just phenomenal. And so again, I think as parents, we often always have this tug of war, but again, between career, children, and making those choices. And sometimes we get stymied with fear and not knowing if you take an opportunity, is it going to be okay for that child? And sometimes you just got to talk to yourself and realize that, hey, that don't be stymied, from fear. Taking that step sometimes will work out for you. So again, it worked out.
I have, just to add on to taking the unknown and going into uncharted territory. So I was working at the base and had just had my first child, and my former boss came to me and said, I want you to work with me. I'm starting this company, and I can't guarantee much, but you will have flexibility, work from home. And so here I was in a very comfortable position, enjoyed what I was doing, had always had the support from my management at the base, liked the people I was working with. But then there's this opportunity where I could come in and start to grow a business, which I didn't have that background. I had gone to graduate school before I got married to get a master's degree in engineering management, but I'd never actually practiced it other than just reading, textbooks. So I thought for a very, very long time about it. It wasn't, it probably took me 2 months to make my decision, and my boss was very patient. But what I knew was that I trusted him. I trusted what he wanted to do. He had been very good to me for years when he was my boss before. And at the same time, I had a very supportive husband who said, you can do this, and don't be scared. And I was like, what happens if it doesn't work out? I could be left without a job in 6 months. We have a child now, and I just one day I said, I'm gonna do it. And I'm so happy I did, because what it has afforded me was not only the opportunity to have this very rewarding career where I've been part of this company that's grown to nearly 50 people, broadened our customer base from not just the DoD, but pharmaceuticals, specialty chemicals. So just expanded that network. But also, I've been able to be accessible and available to my kids. I don't have the worry if I have to, I give myself the license to stop what I'm doing in the middle of the day and go have lunch with my kid because the school is 5 minutes from my house. Or I can participate in classroom functions because it takes an hour out of my day. I'm part of the PTA. I'm very involved on that sense. So that gives me such a rewarding feeling that I can be accessible and there, and I'm seeing these interactions that my children have with their peers, with the teachers, with the staff, with the other parents. That at the same time, I'm able to keep the company. The company's based out of Connecticut, but I'm working remotely. So everything I do is, email or messaging and telecons, and sometimes it's difficult because you feel like when you're not in the room, you're not having the same presence as the people in the room. But I've managed to make it work, and it's now going on 7 years, and I have no plans to change that situation for myself. So for me, the takeaway is it's okay to take a risk. If it doesn't work out, you'll find something, especially if you're leaving something that was comfortable and that you already knew. It's kind of nice to know that you could go back. Like I was told, I think Amy actually called and told me.
The offer's still open.
Yeah. She said you can always. Yeah, she said you can always come back. Most people told me that, so it helped that decision. So.
Thank you. So I think you're answering this, but I'd like you to just frankly say it. I had a great mentor once who told me you can have it all. You just can't have it all at once, Amy. And that was pretty important at the time she said that. So what do you all believe? Can you have it all? Can you have career advancement, whatever path you're choosing, and a life?
I'll jump in on that one, because I think we shared that mentor at one time. Can we say who she was? Yeah, that was Mary Lacey. She would tell us that, and my takeaway from those words that she gave us, sometimes our life, and I use this analogy, sometimes it's not always going to be in balance. Sometimes it's going to be like this, and sometimes it's going to be like this. I have been in the office on a Saturday. I've been in the office on a Sunday. I don't make a habit out of that, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Yeah. I don't make that a common thing, but sometimes I've had to do a weekend, or not an entire weekend, but a day over the weekend. But again, I've seen successful people who balance it very well, and I try to emulate that. And I've seen people who are very successful who do not have a personal life. I think it's what you will for yourself. I will to have it where I have a successful career and I have a personal life. One thing I tell people when I go away on vacation with my family, I'm a very early riser. I don't want them seeing me. I don't like having hundreds of emails when I get back to the office. I'll get up early. I'll just scan emails while they're still asleep. And when they wake up, I shut down the computer, and they don't see me checking emails while I'm on vacation. But again, I don't want to have 200, 300 emails when I get back. So again, those are little things that I do just to kind of keep things in check, make sure there's nothing, crazy going on while I'm away, just to kind of keep check on things. So again, those are just little tricks that I do just to make sure that I keep things in balance. But again, I've seen examples of people who extremely successful, but they don't have a life. But again, sometimes I'm like this, sometimes I'm like that. But again, I try to, when it all averages out, that I'm pretty much in balance. And you know when you're not in balance, because people around you will know when you're not in balance. Just like little kids, just like, do you need a nap? They will know. They will know. Or maybe you need to take a few days of leave.
I'll just add on the balance part of it. There's always going to be outliers. There's going to be nights where I've stayed up past midnight to meet a deadline, or I have to miss some type of school event, just because at that time I'm accountable at work and something has to get done. But at the same time, there's been times where I've said, you know what, I'm going to sit that meeting out. I don't have to be there, or it can wait. Customer's not going to get upset if it's a day late because I have to be somewhere for my kids. There's always those outliers. So as long as you're tackling those one at a time, you're going to maintain that balance. And to keep that balance, it's going to take control and oversight. There's inputs and outputs on each side, and you just have to be selective on for yourself, what's best for yourself, what's best for your family, while keeping your career also in view. You don't want to. I think you'll always know what's the right decision, and I've been very lucky to have a boss that's empowered me to make my decisions on if I can't be somewhere, he gets it, or he'll always say, I would love to have you there, but if you can't make this trip, no problem, and so it's on me, the onus is on me, and I take a lot of pride in that decision. I don't take it for granted.
Great. I'd like to add on to that as well. We keep talking about the work-life balance. I was in a leadership presentation with Dr. Murphy and Dr. Sharon Cradle recently, and we touched on this, and they both beautifully put that instead of it being the balance, sometimes it just has to be the harmony. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily the ups or the downs, it's just how you can manage the situation that you're in at the time. And sometimes it's one way or the other, but you definitely just have to do what is right by you at the time and make sure that you're working and moving yourself forward and being positive in what you're doing and being happy with what you're doing while you're doing it. So I just wanted to add that on.
I think what's important is you need to figure out what it means to you have it all. That's going to mean different things for different people. At one point, prior to marriage, having it all for me was a case of Bud Light, fish in the Chesapeake. That's changed. So, figure out what's important to you, and then you can get that proper balance. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, I think Dave hit it on the head. It's defining what it all means. And then prioritizing those things that are important or not as important in your daily life. There are things that I let go. I have a 86-pound silver Labrador, and he's in the house, and so there are dust bunnies of little gray hair running around until Friday when I have time to vacuum and sweep and do all those things. So you have to make those decisions, and as Karen said earlier, she said, give yourself license. I call it give myself permission to, okay, the house isn't filthy, but it's not really straight right now, and that's okay. Fine. It's what you allow for yourself. And then, of course, you can have it all. You have one life. one life to live. And if you don't believe that you're trying to get it all every day, then you're wasting that day.
Fantastic. This morning, we heard a lot about the role of mentors and partners as we move forward on this journey through life. Some of you have alluded to the role of bosses, partners, but let's talk about that. How important were bosses, mentors, either to your advancement, or were there cases where they took you on a detour for a while and then you found yourself again? What is the role of partners, asking for help, neighbors, family, anybody but yourself?
Yeah, I'll start here. So, as I said earlier, right now we have 4 kids that are very active in sports. And there are weekends where we'll have, 15 games in a weekend. There is no way my wife and I can cover all that. So we're very dependent on developing that network of friends and having that family when they can to help support us. We just cannot do it on our own. It can be challenging. Don't tell my wife, but half the time I don't know where my kids are. I got to call her. I got to call her to figure out who has what kid, what day. And I get home from work and she'll have a schedule, and you need to take this kid here, this kid there, that kid there, and it works. But we cannot get by without that support.
Yeah, I'd say that both professionally and personally, your lives are as full as the relationships that you're going to build and cultivate and nurture, and it's 2 ways. So just as I am humble and gracious and conscious of support when I receive it, I do my best to give it back as well, because I know it goes both ways, and there's other people in the exact same situation, and carpooling to the different activities if there's 2 happening on the same day and you need it, or I'm on a business trip and my husband's an hour away, we get a call that my kid's sick. Who wants to pick up a sick kid from, for you? But you build that little village of people that may not be your family, but they've grown to be like family, and you do the best you can. And I'm never too proud to beg, really. You need it.
So relationships matter. What Shilpa was saying, the relationships that you build matter. The relationships that you build in your professional life. Amy asked about, have you had bosses who kind of helped you along the way? And I wouldn't be sitting where I am if it weren't for a boss 28 years ago who said, hey, you ever thought of being a vice principal? Have you ever seen yourself in that role? Because I never had. And so I would say surround yourself in your professional life as well as your personal life with people who matter to you, and do good work so that you matter back to them, and have that trust. So whether it's, Charles, I need you to get the kids today because I'm covering a field hockey game, or Mr. So-and-so saying, hey, why don't you apply for this job? It looks just like something you'd be good at. Both of those things are important, and it's all built on relationships. Relationships matter.
I would just add that the role of family, I grew up in the Washington area, and frankly, I have a lot of family still here. And even when my children were young, I had aunts and cousins and everyone who just really jumped in. My parents had passed on, and they were just always there to try to help out with me, with my kids when I needed help. And when they say it takes a village, sometimes I had one aunt who actually, when my children were born, she came to me, and she was, by many standards, was a little up in age, but she says, if you don't think I'm old enough, I took care of my grandkids, I would like to take care of your firstborn. No tissues, right?
Yeah, no tissues.
And, and she taught me to, just be a mother. And she also said, when children are sick, they need their mothers. And so that was her signaling to me that you are to stay home with your sick child. Don't bring your sick child to my house. But I mean, that was the lessons that I had to learn, you know? So again, those are things that you just don't, you know, you have to learn, and people are critical in helping you. And then professionally, you know, we are you know, bosses, and I just had some tremendous bosses, mentors that would, again, like you said, you know, hey, have you thought about this position? You know, what is your next move? You know, you should think about going here. You should think about taking an assignment here. And again, things that you would not see for yourself, you know, positions that I never saw for myself. But again, you know, when people ask you to move in these positions, a lot of times you don't see that for yourself. But they see things in you that you never see for yourself. And so when you're asked to move, don't think that people are trying to upset your apple cart. They see in you typically before you see things in yourself. So move into it, embrace it. And usually you're going to thrive and you're going to do well. You're going to knock it out the park. And one thing that I've learned to, and even to this day, 3 words: I need help. You know, don't be afraid to use those words. I need help.
Yep. I have to tag in with that too. I am not afraid to ask for help. It took me a long time, especially as a new mom, it took me a very long time to not feel defeated by asking for help. But my parents were amazing. They still are very, so supportive. And so you're right, asking for that help. There's still so many times. Recently, we signed our kids up for T-ball, and my husband, as I mentioned, travels. So he was like, I'll be the assistant coach, but I can't be the coach because I travel and I might not be there. So we showed up last week and we're like, all right, we're ready to go, and where's the coach? And no one had signed up to be coach. So we were kind of like, okay. And then conveniently, everyone else on the team were brand new people. We were the only returning players. So I was like, I feel like we've been set up here. So my husband and I had kind of a quick chat, and thankfully my parents were there watching our younger child. And I kind of looked at them and said, okay, if we take this on and we coach, is that okay with you? Because I'm going to need you to watch the little one. And they were like, yeah, we're good. So we had that family and that network, team to kind of make it happen. So we're now coaching, and my parents are watching the little one. But it was that conversation and not being afraid to ask for that help to be able to do the things we want to do. And then also having that on the professional side, having that support of your colleagues and your friends that you build in your workplace. I can't tell you how many times I've struggled in the morning trying to get the kids ready for school, and I feel like I'm, yelling and screaming, and I'm just trying to get you to school. Just do the right things, please. So there have been those days where I have that moment in the parking lot where I'm like, oh, I was so terrible. I yelled too much, and then you go into work and your friend sees that you've had that day, and they give you a hug and say, keep on going, move on with your day. It's a day. Tomorrow will be better. Keep it going. So even some of that self-talk, but then, your friends and your colleagues kind of help get you through it too. So definitely all those relationships and building those friendships help tremendously.
Fantastic. I'm going to transition after this next question to Q&A for this panel, and I know your questions are going to be much better than mine. But the theme of this symposium is women leadership into the next decade. As we talked about this morning, we're getting ready to start 2020. Who can believe that? And so if you could give a piece of advice to those who are coming up through, what would be that advice for them to reach their career and personal objectives in the next decade?
I have an opinion.
Okay.
And the advice I would give you is develop a thick skin. Because in this age of technology where the lines between home and work are blurred, but that technology has also brought about all of this social media presence where everyone in the world thinks that they know better than anyone else what to do or say, and they're very brave behind their keyboards. Sometimes things are said as you move into roles that become very visible, and where you're making decisions on behalf of others that you believe are the correct decisions for your community, that others have a difference of opinion. And where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that difference of opinion would have stayed, at a coffee table, now that difference of opinion is blasted out to anyone who wants to see it. And there are times when if you buy into that kind of negativity, it really begins to tear at who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. So develop a thick skin. Leadership is not for those who can't take a punch, because it's worth it. What you're doing and what you want to see happen for your organization or in your role is worth it. But you need to be able to set aside those who may have a different opinion and be wanting to share that opinion without a basis of fact. Develop a thick skin.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I would say stay positive and stay true to yourself. There are times that you may be told that you might be too bubbly or too happy, or I don't know if I've been told that or not, but or use too many exclamation points. Just stay true to who you are. I'm definitely that person that says Happy Monday every Monday. Just trying to be true to you and not try and fit some mold that people are trying to fit you into. Stay true to yourself.
I would say to always be aware of how you're communicating with anybody, not just your peers, not just management, not people that you might be mentoring. People remember conversations. They remember the way that they made you feel or you felt, and as you go through your career, personal, professional, people are going to remember certain situations where you helped them or you made them feel better about something that was troubling them, or that you might have talked down to them, or you might have been condescending, and it could come back, and they might end up being your boss someday. Or so just always pay attention and make sure that you're doing your best to treat people kindly and with respect, because that's fundamentally how your relationships are going to be established and grow.
Thank you. Excellent. Any other thoughts?
I think Heather's is also mine is be who you are and to lead boldly. You can't be anybody but who you are. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, particularly as women, we try to fit this mold of who we should be as leaders. But you have to be who you are. You have to keep it real. You are who you are, and you have to lead in the truth of who you are in any situation. You just can't fit that mold of who people expect you to be or whatever you've been taught in the class. Again, you just can't put on a facade of what people are expecting you to be, because eventually you're going to kind of fall away from that. And so be who you are and to lead boldly, and that I think will carry you throughout your career.
I guess I would say, first thing is figure out what's important to you. And once you've done that, you can kind of set that as your goal. And from there, to me, it's about building relationships. So many of the decisions that are made are based on conversations or relationships that have been established. And it's very important that you continue to build that network. And even meetings that may not seem important at that time, down the road, that person gets a new position, and then they're in a position to help you. Mm-hmm. So much of it is just about having those relationships and identify the ones that can help you and take advantage of them.
Well, my first thought is that you try to model it, but that wouldn't work with me sometimes. But again, one way is to try to remind them that they should try to, that they should try to give the time that they need over to giving that balance that they need to both at work and to where they need to be at home as well. Again, modeling it may not always work, and where they may see you doing it. But again, one thing that I try to do, particularly at the end of the day, if I sweep through the floor and I see people there late, I may ask, hey, what are you working on? Is it necessary that you're here this late doing it? I can, usually say, hey, but don't stay too late, or you've been here twice this week working on things late. Don't stay too late once you move on, or, but again, I would just try not to, reinforce that being here, being and staying late is a thing that's expected, that, having that balance is important. I'm not sure if I answered the question, though.
And I'm going to make a rule for the panel. They can call a friend if they'd like for a question.
I think that was a call a friend. Thanks for Missy for calling me out on that one.
So if anybody else wants to add on,
Yes.
that'd be fine.
Thank you.
I'll try. So those are two great questions, and I'll tell you the acknowledgement in my dissertation, the first page, it says, to my husband Charles, who believes in me more than I believe in myself. Because really having someone at home or someone in your sphere who is really willing, and every panelist has said this, to kind of push you or nudge you or nurture you is very, very important. If you don't have someone like that in your personal life, then my suggestion is find someone in your professional life. Because all of us are looking, well, some are younger than others. I am looking for people to replace me. And so, all of us are looking for who's next up. Because when you're responsible for an organization, you want to make sure that organization runs very well without you. And so we're all looking for next up. So my advice would be, if you can't find that person in your personal world, find someone in your professional life who is willing to be that gentle nudge.
If I could follow and maybe try to redeem myself a little bit here. Before I applied for the senior executive position or senior executive service, I had a conversation with my husband. And I talked to him about applying for an SES position. I said, this isn't just another promotion, from a 13 to a 14 or 14 to a 15. I said, these jobs are really demanding. And it was important to me that he was all in with me taking on this level of responsibility and leadership. I said, these are potentially long days, very demanding, and it was just really important to me that he was going to be supporting me in the pursuit in my role should I get the job. And it was a long conversation. We were on vacation at the time. I'll never forget it. And he says, hey, if that's something you really want, I'm going to support you in it. And I'll never forget, after the interview coming home, he says, well, how do you think you did? I said, I give myself B-, And he says, you got the job. And I'm thinking to myself, what does he know, right? And sure enough, I did get the job. But again, he said, I knew when you told me about you were going to apply for the job that you were the kind of person that if you were going to apply, you were going to get it. Because that's who you are. And so, again, I think having a partner or a spouse that's going to support you, and even since, I mean, that was 2011, you know, and since that time, he's always been there supporting and knowing that, hey, okay, yeah, I didn't get dinner this week cooked, or any, you know, or whatever it is, you know, or laundry or whatever. I mean, that's kind of our life now. It's no judgment. So again, it's very important that you're both all in. That's your life now. And so I think that's important that you have that support.
Other questions? All right, who's taking that one? Go, Dave, go.
All right.
We're back to the Bud Light, aren't we?
It solves everything. I think so. So one of the problems with people putting themselves out there, they're afraid that failure or there's that risk associated with taking that jump. So I know one of the things, I have a relatively small group, about 18, but one of the things that we always talk about is knowing that you know, it's not, we're not trying to push you out. It is to provide that opportunity. And then also, in a lot of cases, knowing that, you know, if that opportunity is not what you hoped or it just doesn't work out, that person there are going to be other opportunities. And it may be as simple as you still have an opportunity to come back. So I think one of the ways that we as supervisors can help is help that person recognize that that may not be your only opportunity, that there are other options beyond just that one. And then they can give them a little confidence that if they aren't successful there, there's still other options. There's always going to be other options there. So for me, it's trying to instill some confidence that this isn't, that particular opportunity isn't all or nothing. There's still something else.
Get outside of your comfort zone. And that's easier said than done. But I know a lot of people in leadership positions who really, truly are introverted and would prefer to be not the one on the stage or not the one leading the charge, but they're in a role and they have to have practiced and pushed themselves and gotten outside of their comfort zone. I don't believe that great leadership means you have to be extroverted. I believe that thoughtful introversion is really meaningful. But in any position, you need to get out of your comfort zone sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. And exposing yourself to other opportunities and things that are around you that, again, sometimes fall outside your comfort zone. But getting that exposure and seeing how other leaders interact in different positions, even if it's not the same way that you would do it, seeing and having them kind of model the way for you and having that exposure to those opportunities definitely helps.
And I would just add, just because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you don't have confidence. And there's a separation there. Yeah. And so as long as you maintain that confidence, that should be what drives you. Right. And you can lead with introversion, but you should be your best advocate for yourself.
Well said. Great point.
So thank you. Please, let's have a hand for this panel.